Day 23. I remember it like it was 2 days ago. Hello from day 25, in fact. I'm recording this a couple days after because day 23 got a little crazy, and day 24 also, you'll see as I develop these videos. But it actually all started pretty normal. I stepped on the scale at home, and boy, was I amazed. 210.4 was the weight. That is a drop of 12 pounds from the start of this thing. So just over 3 weeks, 12 pounds down, below the goal that I hope to achieve of 211, and hopeful that it can continue or at least maintain at this point. From there, I packed because I was beginning my journey to a military post to do 5.5-ish days of military training, and that in mind, for breakfast, I made a pretty large meal. I began by sauteing some onions, added in avocado, and then this is all just leftover spring mix that had to be eaten. If I didn't eat it now, it was going in the garbage. So why not add it to an omelet? Whip up 3 eggs, pour that in, let that cook up a little bit. A nice helping of mozzarella, and yes, this is that mozzarella I have to be careful of, but again, I've committed to eating, and boom. Massive omelet for breakfast. Not actually the biggest meal I've had on this thing, but still pretty good size. Total of 838 calories, 67 grams of fat, 45 grams of protein, and this is the big number, net carbs, 16 grams. From here, the day's adventure began, and as always, when you're flying somewhere, that involved me going to the airport first. I won't get into the details, but my original flight was canceled, and they tried to rebook me to the next day, but I found a different flight, got myself on that, and then that was still kind of late, got to the airport, ran to a gate, and got myself on yet a different flight that was early enough to get me where I needed to go, which also ended up causing a bit of a problem down the road. But food-wise, things turned out okay. For lunch, I stopped over in Charlotte, where I connected with a barbecue joint. Feeling pretty safe in my choices: brisket, ribs, green beans, and coleslaw. Plus, I'd actually packed a food scale with me in my carry-on, so I was able to weigh things out. So even though I didn't assemble these items, I at least had a decent idea of the amounts that I was consuming. Now let me tell you, I thought I made safe choices in green beans and coleslaw. Coleslaw to me is like, oh, mayo and cabbage is a low-carb food. Not the case. I took one small bite of that coleslaw, and it tasted so sweet. I did a quick Google, and I was like, whoa, way more carbs than I expected, and that was it. So I didn't even count that thing, I just threw it away. So these totals are brisket, ribs, and green beans. Calories: 844 grams of fat, 63 grams of protein, 55, and grams of net carb, 6, most of which did end up coming from those green beans. That all went well, got onto the next plane, got to where I was going, ended up having a snack along the way, a pretty small one and a pretty travel-friendly one. A Jack Link's beef and cheddar pack, and a Kirkland protein bar. These two things together, 340 calories, 19 grams of fat, 33 grams of protein, that's that protein bar every time, and 5 grams of net carb, 4 of which, again, came from this protein bar. I'm committed to finishing these things off, dang it. At this point, food-wise, I've already kind of messed up my day a little bit. I'm already a little over on the total net carbs that I'm supposed to limit myself to. But frankly, I was doing the best I could on the fly, literally, and started caring a little less about what I was eating as I discovered when I got to my destination that my checked bag had not quite made it with me. It had been put on a later flight, which meant that I had to get onto my shuttle to go to the military post without my checked bag, and had no idea when I'd be able to get it because I can't go back to the airport, which means I have to wait on delivery, and I think you kind of see where this is going. It was so late in the day, by the time I got on post, nothing was open, I had no vehicle, so I did have dinner, if you want to call it that, specifically 30 grams worth of meat sticks. Calories for these things, 137 grams of fat, 11 grams of protein, 10, no net carbs. So there I was, food for the day consumed and tracked, but none of the gear that I brought with me to create these videos, the scale that I brought with me to maintain doing the body measurements, and an early start the next day to go to a military thing without a uniform on top of it. So I hope now you can understand why I just did a quick temporary video for that day, and similarly one for the next day, which I'll explain when I get there. All that aside, let's do the totals of this day. The first that I had to leave my home into the world and experience keto. And they weren't very good. Total calories, 2,159. Total grams of fat, 160. Total grams of protein, 143. Total grams of net carb, 26. 27. So about 200 calories over, 8 grams of fat over, 20 grams of protein over, and 3 grams of carb. One thing that I am adding into the mix now that I have departed the house though is the percentages of calories consumed. Because the whole idea behind tracking the grams of the macros is to line up with this rough 70-25-5. That is 70% of your calories from fat, 25 from protein, and 5 from carbs. So if I look at percentages, for the day I was 68 for fat, 27 for protein, and 5 for carbs. Thus, even though I had gone over in my carbs and a bit in my protein, the percentages were still really close, and thus I can sleep soundly knowing that I did a pretty decent job my first day out of the house. Of course, tomorrow, day 24, is my first day trying this diet while dining on a military post. That is a dining facility, or DFAC. And let me just say, it is a steep learning curve to figure that one out. This wraps up my day 23 recap, and now I'm getting to work on my day 24 recap. Stick with me, everybody. It is quite a ride so far.